Thank you, Keisha. Thank you for talking to us about Access Employment, our services, and for introducing me. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to your webinar, Preparing for Your Virtual Interview. I hope this morning finds you well, and the snow in Toronto as well, as we are not done with winter yet. So let's go back to business, and I'm going to take a moment to introduce myself and let you know a little bit about me. My full name is Veronica Budalican. The reason why I'm saying my full name is because we train our clients to be confident, no matter where they're from, no matter their background, educational background, and strongly say their name, their full name when they're introducing themselves. So I'm originally from Romania, if you're curious, based on my last name, and I've came to Canada in 1996. Again, if some of you are curious. I'm a graduate of the Career and Work Counselor program from George Brown College. I graduated in 2010, and that program today is called Career Development Practitioner Program. So I'm currently an employment consultant for, as Keisha mentioned, for the Cybersecurity Connections program and the Women in Technology programs. And I've joined Access Employment in August 1st, 2018. You do see a note there about a fun fact that I wanted to remember to tell you because I think it's important. When it comes to job applications, and specifically when it came to my job applications at Access Employment. So just so you know, and to continue to have courage for your job search and to not give up, I've actually applied for 4 jobs at Access before I got hired as an employment consultant. So the key point is, the encouragement is to keep going and keep working on your goals, on your career goals and job search goals. So don't give up. Lastly, at the end, I will add the link to, if you are interested, if you are in technology and cybersecurity, we do have a group on LinkedIn that is approved by Access. I am the owner of it and my team. And we add job postings there. We add various webinars, information, articles from the industry. So definitely feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and in our group here if you so desire. All right, so now that you know a little bit about me, let's focus more on what you can do to be successful when you video interviewing with employers. So the pandemic has changed a lot of things in the place of work, including how companies interview and how they are onboarding new candidates virtually. So as devastating as the pandemic is, it did bring in some changes that could be beneficial for us. And one of them is this way of interviewing from the comfort of our home. Now, there are a lot of platforms that employers can use to invite their candidates, their rival candidates for interviews. Some of them you know and perhaps have used yourself. Zoom being one of them, which you are using now, and it's one of the most widely used platform for interviews. But also employer can use Microsoft Teams, they can use GoToMeeting, WebEx, or Spark Hire. If you are someone that is a client with Access and working with a consultant, or you are part of a program at Access, you will get the chance to practice a Spark Hire interview. So we'll talk a little bit more about the different styles of interviewing with these platforms. But for now, I just want to let you know that you would need to be successful. You need to familiarize yourself a little bit with these platforms. A lot of them have free accounts that you can, use. You can practice. And for example, Zoom, at least I know for sure that if you sign in and you do a practice for your interview before you meet with an employer, even with a free account, you can record yourself and then see how you do when you answer the questions. So that's a good platform to practice. So video interviews are used for a variety of reasons. including screening a candidate. So for example, an employer might send a Spark Hire interview a one-way interview, which means that there's no one on the other side and there's no one interacting with you. But you will have questions that are set by the employer. You will have a set time to answer the question. And those answers that you provide will be recorded on the Spark Hire platform. And the employer can access, when you complete the interview and you submit it, can access your answers. So they can see who you are and how you address yourself and how you present yourself professionally. So one of the very important things is when you do a video interview is to log in ahead of time. So before the schedule that is set up with the employer, ideally you would want even the day before to do a check on your connections, on your equipment, just to make sure that everything will go smoothly. And please do not leave things to the last minute. We never know what happens with technology. Since the last 2 years, 2 and a bit since COVID started, we have seen even my internet so reliable and high speed, you know, sometimes it still gives me problems, and sometimes there's delays and various issues that can happen. So if you log in about 5 to 10 minutes, make sure you check everything. It would really save you a lot of stress for the upcoming interview. So the best connection is through a laptop or a desktop. The tablets, if you use a tablet or a mobile device, there might be some limited capabilities on the video conferencing platforms. You also have to allow a certain, you know, ahead of time, there's certain restrictions by the phone provider that you have to allow to, you know, for the platform that you are interviewing on. So check these things out. If possible, try to have your interview from a desktop or a laptop. And a really good headset, even the one that is over the years, it's really helpful, something that has a microphone, because employers would ideally, you want them to focus on what you have to say, and you want to minimize the noise that might be around you, you know, in the place that where you are at, in your home, if there's construction going on or if there's traffic or anything like that. It will really help to keep the sound sharper and distract the other distractions that might be going on around you. So one other important thing is to have proper lighting. Right now, where I am, I do have 2 windows in front of me, so I'm lucky that I'm able to locate my desk in such a, you know, location. And it's not always recommended to have a window in front of you, especially if you get bright sun coming in through the windows. The way I'm facing, I don't get bright sun, so it doesn't wash me out. It completely makes me almost like white and invisible. So that's a good thing. So this lighting works for me. But other things to consider, so a window that doesn't have direct sunlight coming in, other things to consider are lamps and other lighting devices that you can use. For example, on Amazon, for even something as $10, you can find a little ring light that you can attach to your laptop. And it will give you sufficient light on your face to be visible. Ideally, you would like to work with natural light if possible. So depending on your interview, if it's a one-way interview, like I mentioned earlier with Spark Hire, you have a certain amount of time to complete that interview. So you can choose the time of the day that you would do it and then send a recording, submit the recording. If the interview is directly with the employer, then you don't have as much choice of the time of the day, but most of the time is during the work hours, the interviews that will happen, right? So just be mindful of that. How much light do you have coming in? Are you visible or are you in shadow? The other thing that I have, just so you know, for lighting for myself, even though I have the windows in front of me, I have 2 lamps on my desk, one on my left, one on my right. So they don't create, if I just have one lamp on one side, it would create a shadow on one side of my face. So I don't want to do that. So I have 2 lamps. So even when it gets a little bit darker in winter, I still have adequate light. So the audience, such as yourself, can see me. Other things you can do, you can add a lamp in front, so in front of you, behind your laptop. Sometimes you'll have to adjust in your home and you have to move in what's the best area of the room is that you would take that interview, right? So we'll talk a little bit more about the background and things like that, but the best thing is try it ahead of time. See where it looks best in your home. See if you are visible or if you are hidden. See if the light comes from the top of you. So if a light comes right from the top of you, it creates different shadows from the top. So that's not necessarily the most flattering type of lighting as well. So try it out, test it out, see what is the best location for you in terms of lighting. And then we'll talk about background and distractions, because you'll have to compromise and find the best location of where you're sitting when you're having your interview as well. All right, so now ideally for video interviews, and some of them, unlike Zoom, for example, Spark Hire does not have a virtual background. And ideally, we do recommend for the clients to have an interview without a virtual background. Now, I do have a virtual background myself right now with our ACCES logo. The reason why we don't recommend a virtual background, if possible, is because it can distort a little bit the shape. If your hair or your head shape, sometimes the virtual background can make you look a little bit funny. So the best way to go is to find a place in your home that has a good, clean background. So you can sit with your back towards that wall. So it could be a clean wall without a lot of pictures or images on it. It could be, if you use something as a bookcase, some of us in our homes, including myself, I have a wall-to-wall bookcase. However, for that, you have to be mindful to see what type of books are on there. Does it look distracting? Does it make the listener visually look to try to figure out what books you have? So make sure you keep appropriate sort of books on there to be visual. But ideally, you want a blank wall behind you. Even if it has wallpaper, that's okay, but something that's not too bright, not too distracting, something that can really allow you and allow the listener to have the focus on you directly. I've had clients in the past that have done interviews from sitting on their couch with the wall nicely behind them in that case, or even I had a client do it from the bathroom and it was successful. They had a larger bathroom than I do. I don't have that kind of clear wall behind me, but find the best place for you, including maybe your kitchen. The main thing would be, is the background clear and free of distractions, right? Are you visible? And you need to position your laptop or your chair so you can have direct eye contact with the lens, like I'm doing right now. So I'll show you the difference. So right now I'm looking at the lens as I'm speaking with you. I'm imagining all of you behind my screen there. And right now I'm looking down at the slide and I'm reading it. So you can see the difference, I hope, when it comes to eye contact. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. The other thing that is important, and especially this week, I know, children are not in school right now for this week, for March break. So if you have an interview at any time, including this week, do communicate with your family members. do let them know that you are interviewing, and try your best to have an area where you can close the door and concentrate on your interview. However, sometimes children might walk in on you. The best thing to do about that, you can let the employer know ahead of time that you have, if you like, I've had clients that did this in the past, that you have your children are home for March break and they might walk in the room. Okay, so ideally you don't want any distractions, but if you think that it could happen that your child might walk into the room, you can just let them know ahead of time. Please excuse me if my child might walk into the room. So I apologize in advance. Okay, so you can mention that. So you give the employer a heads up. Employers are more used to us now working from home, doing everything that we do, including job search from home. So they're a little bit more understanding, but at the same time, for your sake and for your concentration to focus on the interview and your answers, it's best to try to have family members to stay away for that duration, okay, for the 45 minutes, an hour duration of the interview. All right. So let's talk a little bit about preparation. So video interviews tend to be brief, especially if they are more of a screening type of interview. So for example, you may be used to having a call for your screening interview. So I'm talking about that very first interview when the employer gets to know you and talks to you about your background and about your experience and your interest for the role. However, some platforms allow, like Spark Hire, for example, and that one-way interview, that can also be used as a screening type of interview, right? So that would be a brief interview, would be maybe about 3 to 4 questions at the most. And you would answer general questions. Upon the employer viewing those recordings, they will call you for further interviews, for longer interviews. Or you would have a call first, you would talk about your experience, your background, interest in the role, and then they will call you for a video interview with someone. So not a one-on-one interview, not a one-way interview, where you will have someone on the other side interacting with you and asking you questions. The best thing to do is to practice your answers. In fact, I would say, so do your company research, prepare the questions that you're going to ask the interviewer, and practice your questions out loud. So you can do this a variety of ways. You can record yourself on your phone. You can look in the mirror. If you haven't done it before, it can be very strange to make eye contact with yourself and connect with yourself, but I definitely do recommend it. And to get used to making that eye contact, like you would look in the lens of the camera. And otherwise, you can use, for example, Zoom, as I mentioned, even the free, hopefully all of you here have a free Zoom account. And even in that one, I've tried it myself. You can open a meeting and you can record yourself. And then you see how you come across. You see how your body language is. You see the answers. Are they concise? Do they answer the specific question that was asked? Are you smiling? Are you using the right body language to come across on camera in the right way, in the way that you want? So plan a variety of questions. Best way to plan the question is take a look at that job description that you apply for. Ideally, by now, you save all of your job descriptions, you keep track of all of your applications, and you save them on a Word document. And then before the interview, hopefully you targeted your resume by now. And by the time you are at the interview, you have that job description to prepare. So take those keywords that you used to target your resume and use them to create your own interview questions, right? You have the knowledge, you have the industry knowledge, you have the skills. All you have to do, if you don't know how to create questions, the simplest way is take a tool, take a software, take a skill, let's say time management, and ask yourself tell me about a time when you use time management effectively. That would be the simplest question. So you formulate it around the keyword, and then you look for you write down the examples that where you've practiced good time management skills, right? So keep going with all the keywords and formulate questions for yourself. And also formulate questions based on your resume that you can answer for yourself, because the things and the tools and the skills that you add to your resume, they will ask you about it as well, right? So that's one of the best way to practice specifically per that job that you applied for. So everything in job search is tailored. Resume, interview answers, cover letters, you know, anything you say, it would be tailored to the job that you're applying for. And don't forget to practice general questions, common questions. And for sure, you should start with something like, tell me about yourself. All right, so prepare as much as you can. In fact, preparation for interviews comes way before you get the call for the interview. So as soon as you job search, it should be a continuous practice. So by the time you speak and you have your video interview, it's going to be natural. And it's not going to sound rehearsed. It's not going to sound like you're reading off a script. And it would really allow you to be natural, show your personality, and engage with the listener, engage with the employer. All right, let's move on to the next one. So yes, for the camera, it's important to have it eye level. So for example, unfortunately, you're going to have to work with what you have in your home, right? So maybe if your chair is too low and your table is high, maybe you can put something, you know, underneath you so you can be a little bit higher so you can have that eye level. You can alternatively add, if you need to raise your laptop, for example, or your desktop, maybe you can put something underneath, some books or something like that, that will have you have that direct eye connection with the camera, right? So when we have this eye connection with when we look into the lens, it simulates as we looking at the person that's on the other side, regardless if they're live with us or if they're looking at it later. It's just as important. If you record the answers in a one-way interview, let's say through Spark Hire, it's just as important for the listener to engage with you. So simulating that eye contact that we do in person can be done through the lens. Now, it would be hard to constantly stare at the lens. So you don't want to, you know, constantly stare without blinking. And it's okay to look down a little bit at the screen. If you have a one-on-one interview and you see the person on camera, it's okay to look down at the screen from time to time, but remember to keep your eye mostly on that lens. So it simulates that eye contact with the person. The lighting, as the picture shows here in the optimal webcam setup, you see how is pretty much eye level, and then the lights on either side, so it doesn't create strange shadows. It's one of the best ways to have you set up for the interview. One of the other things that I want to mention is that, for example, I was talking to my clients about video interviews yesterday, and we were viewing Spark Hire recordings for them. And one of my clients was filming from her child's bedroom, and there was a beautiful children lamp on the wall. Otherwise, the wall was empty, but the lamp, for example, was turned on. It was a beautiful star, and it was very bright, sort of like yellowish white light. So in that case, you know, if we can't help sometimes, right, where we are in the location that we are, and we just have to do our best. So in that case, if there's certain lamps on the walls or something like that, if you turn it off and it doesn't have that light to sort of blind someone that's looking at it, then that will work fine as well in terms of minimizing distractions, okay? So best thing, stay relaxed, sit straight, look into the camera, and imagine someone behind the screen. The other tips I can give you about this, for example, it might help us to, if there's no one there and doesn't do the interview with us one-on-one. So let's say you have to do a one-way interview, such as, you know, with Spark Hire. You can put an image of your child or an image of your pet or something that, an image of something that you love and allows you to express and feel, you know, positive feelings. It would allow you to smile and to connect with yourself in such a way that is relaxed and happy and engaging and positive. Not only that, it can trigger your mind and your brain to look in that direction. So you can just stick it right beside your lens, an image that inspires you. It could even be your favorite vacation location if you want. Okay, so do what you can to allow you to shine in the best way possible. All right. So let's talk about the way you frame your body and the way you frame your face. So ideally, you want to show shoulders. So your head, your face, your shoulders, and like a portrait. So it's a portrait type of framing. If the camera or the laptop is too low and it shows you, let's say, to your waist, you don't necessarily want to do that. It's not always flattering. For some of us, like myself, it's not as flattering, but also it minimizes distraction if you have just your profile. So think in terms of even a LinkedIn profile. Your profile picture on LinkedIn is your head, your shoulders, that is visible, and ideally sort of in the center of the view. Okay, so that's why you have to test it out and see what it looks like. The other thing you want to do, and I mentioned just a little bit earlier, is your body posture. So sitting straight, sort of imagining like someone's pulling a string at the top of your head, and it straightens your spine. It also allows us to breathe, you know, a little bit different and easier, and it allows our chest cavity to open up a little bit and sound, you know, different, right? So you can try it right now if you want. Just sit up a little straighter. It helps you back, and it also helps you looking more confident, and it triggers your brain with that professionalism, right? So that's one of the things you can do to increase confidence and also to come across professional, but also allows your body to, you know, it tells your body that you are doing business now, you are interacting, you are being professional. So try not to sort of slouch, right? So this is me slouching. Try not to lean back in your chair because that comes across as distant and not interested, right? So sit straight, look into the camera, smile. So keep practicing that. So make sure you're not too far from the lens or too close. Okay, so either can be distracting. And we want the employer to focus absolutely 100% on what you have to say in the examples that you share that make you shine. All right, now let's talk a little bit about speaking when you do your video interviews, which is very important because there could be lag or delays when we record. And some of us speak a lot faster. Even I don't think I did the best job in taking my time in speaking with you today. I do notice sometimes I was a little bit faster, but it is very important to, for the interview's sake, to practice speaking a little bit slower. It's good to have a pause in between the words, in between your ideas, examples, whatever you share, to allow for that information to land with the audience, to connect with the listener, right? So try, when you practice and record yourself, Try it by speaking regularly as you normally would with a friend or a colleague, and then try to slow down your speech and see how it comes across. See if it helps you land the points that you want to land a little bit better. See if they make more impact on you. If they make more of an impact on you as you listen to it, it will definitely make more of an impact on the employer and the listener on the other side. The other thing that you can do to trigger your brain with those positive sort of feelings, so besides having the picture and to help you slow down, is smiling. It's very hard for us to speak super fast if we smile. So it helps us slow down a little bit. And it really helps the listener to connect and engage with us. I will tell you one thing though, when you have your interviews, not for every interview, the employer, they would not always be with the camera on. So you will find yourself in an interview with one person or maybe a panel. Some employers will be on camera with you so you can see them, but some will turn it off. And then all of a sudden you find yourself like in a one-way interview and there's no feedback from the other person's face when you answer your questions. So the best thing to do is try not to lose practice for this inevitability. Am I saying it right? Inevitability. Practice with that in mind, and keep your cool, keep poised, keep collected, and keep smiling. I think one of the things that happens when someone on the other end just turns off their camera and they disappear and it's just a blank or their picture, remember that someone is still there listening, someone is still there taking notes, someone is still there watching you. So continue to smile, continue to be, the best version of yourself that you can be. Let's see. Okay, I think that's all I have to say for here. So remember to slow down. Remember to be with your portrait, showing shoulders and a camera view, and to smile regardless what's happening on the other side. So let's talk a little bit about body language. And it is true that virtual interviewing, it doesn't allow us to show the body language as we would in person, but there are still things that you can do. And some of them, as I mentioned before, you can still make eye contact by looking into that lens and connecting with the person. Be conscious, consciously know. So regardless if there's someone there or you're just recording answers for the employer, someone will be there watching them. So you can imagine that person being there listening, right? Because they will be listening and they will be watching at some point if it's not live, right? It's a good, instead of, so I talked about being distant, leaning back, right? But the thing to convey, interest is to lean forward a little bit. So not so close that your eyes are in the camera and not the rest of your face, but leaning a little bit forward, right? To when you speak. The smiling also conveys and helps with the body language, right? And when you have questions, one trick or one tip that we talk about, for example, if you need to take a couple seconds to think of an answer, have a glass of water with you. And from time to time, if you need a moment, just have a sip of water like I'm going to have right now because I'm thirsty. Have a sip of water and it gives you a moment to sort of collect your thoughts before you answer that question. Now, obviously, you don't want to do this for every single question, but from time to time, some of those questions that are unexpected and you maybe try to pull out the right example and, have a little bit of sip of water. It also helps when you speak, right? So it's good for us to be hydrated when we speak at any type of speech, video, in-person meetings, anything. The other important thing is that this is an interview. So regardless if it's a one-way interview, sort of like a screening interview or other types of one-way interview, regardless if it's a one-on-one interview or a panel interview, we do need to be dressed up as for the in-person interview. So just because we are from the comfort of our home, that does not mean that we do not look professional, or that does not mean that we don't make the effort to dress professionally for the interview. Oops, sorry. I'm just checking the time and we are good. I do want to mention that just a couple tips about attire. So regardless, honestly, regardless where you're interviewing, the attire during the interview matters, okay? So even if you're interviewing at a company that has very casual dress, let's say an IT company where the developers wear jeans and t-shirts, let's say, if that's the culture for the company, you still have to be dressed up professionally for your interview. So ideally for both men and women, you would want to have a blazer, a jacket. For men, it would be, I would recommend wearing a tie, just to bring it to, top notch. And just make sure for both men and women that you have contrast between the shirt or the blouse that you're wearing, blouse for ladies or shirt, and the jacket that you're wearing. So for example, if you have a black shirt, wear like a light gray suit jacket, or for ladies, a cardigan, like a sweater, like a professional type of cardigan. If you have if your jacket is black, for example, maybe wear a light blue or a light gray. Don't wear a tie, for example, for men that's very pixelated or very small details. Sometimes the shirt, if it has certain patterns, lines, or even squares, it can distort how it looks. Okay, so just be mindful of that. When you look at yourself and you do your practice, see how it comes across, how your attire comes across. Does it distract from your image, or does it allow, the person that's viewing you to focus on you and what you are saying? Okay, so just a quick tip there. All right. Also, when we dress professionally, it really helps us with our mindset. It signals to our brain that, okay, we're getting serious now, we're getting into the interview. So it helps, okay? The rest, grooming and cleaning, being clean. I'm so sorry, some of my words today. The rest I'm sure you know about, right? So just make sure you prepare ahead of time, even the night before. What clothing are you going to wear? Are they ironed? Do they look, crisp, clean? Is your hair okay? Do you need to put some gel? So I have curly hair naturally. I've straightened it today. But if I leave it natural, which I do sometimes, I have this little flyaways all over the place. So I have to put a little bit of gel. Or if I put my hair back, I want to make sure that I make it nice and sleek with a little bit of gel, so it's not, especially on camera, it would really show against the white background, all the little flyaways for us ladies. If we have more of a curly hair, it would show. So I make sure I kind of look and I look professional, and the flyaways are in control as much as I can. All right. One more thing, because I'm recently wearing glasses. I've just started wearing them a couple months ago. There is some glasses have a high reflection. So because of all the lights and the window in front of us, so whatever we use for video interviewing, and we can't help it. We have to wear glasses, right? And we can't help the reflection. It will reflect the screen like it probably is doing for me right now. The trick with that would be to see, when you look at the camera, the person that's watching, the interviewer and the employer, you want them to be able to see your eyes. So even if it's not, 100% of the time, as much as possible, if we talk sort of relax, sometimes we move our head, sometimes we talk with our hands. Try not to cover your face, obviously, but a natural body language will have some movement. And when you practice, just look to see if the reflection in your glasses, it's very bright and it covers your eyes. So then the person on the other side won't be able to see your eyes. And then see how you can adjust that. So that's another thing for those of us that wear glasses have to think about as well, for that glare and that reflection. All right. So one of the last things I'm going to talk about is to minimize distractions, and that includes your smartphone. Even myself for this webinar, I turned off, I went to start on my laptop and I turned off all notifications, because notifications are useful, right? We have family, children, something happens, but during the interview, so ideally you let your family members know that you're interviewing during a particular time. Ideally you would turn your phone off, right? And you would turn any other devices and distractions off. If you have certain daily alarms, right? So maybe you have to take a medication at a certain time and then you have a reminder on your phone. Maybe see if you can take it earlier, or see if you can have it with you, you know, while you're interviewing and while you're taking your sip of water. Maybe you can take your medication. Actually, I wouldn't advise it. But I'm trying to say, try to think of all the things that could distract you, all of the beeps, everything like that, and turn alarms off, turn notifications off on your computer, because it will be very distracting, not just to you, but also, you know, to the listener, right, to the audience, to your employer, because they're going to hear that ding, right? Yeah. So that's pretty much what we have for today. I do want to thank you for being here with us today and for joining, preparing for your virtual interview webinar at ACCES Employment. I do see the chat popping, and I do see the Q&A there. So I know you guys have been active pretty much since I started. So thank you so much for being active. This is one of the best ways to interact when you network, when you go to webinars to learn more about trends, you know, related to your industry, your career. So please keep engaging. Thank you so much for being here. And I do want to wish you from the bottom of my heart a successful job search journey with amazing opportunities and those well-awaited job offers from employers. So thank you very much. I will pass it on to Keisha now to open it up for the Q&A session.
Thank you, Veronica. So we do have some questions here for you if you wanted to answer them. So Shorey would like to know if it is possible to have a list of common interview questions.
Yes. So I mentioned ideally to create questions from the job description, but there are lists of questions that you can find, for example, on the internet, but also our website, our ACCES, specifically our ACCES portion of our website has so much important information when it comes to job search, including general questions or behavioral questions, how to address certain questions, and what is the employer looking for when they ask a particular questions. So definitely lists are available.